Hi! Quite a long time ago, I showed you how to make small magical tree houses. I mean, houses for magical creatures. And ever since, deep down inside, I really wanted to take up such a project again. I wanted to make a small house in somewhat unusual surroundings, and for this, I decided to take succulents, which I'd never had before. In Leroy Merlin, I found these cute little babies and took several of them with me. I was looking specifically for such tiny succulents. So, here we have 3 different and 2 similar plants. First of all, we need to transplant them and make a composition, so we could start making a house right away. I had a huge candle from IKEA, which was in... I think we can take it as a real glass pot, which was matte and quite fancy. Here, I used to keep the beads for one of my projects, which will be uploaded later. Peeling off a sticker? Well, not perfectly, but it's just a matter of time. For these little babies, I bought special potting soil. I didn't buy a drainage because, according to what I've read, this plant doesn't need a lot of water, which means that I don't need to water them a lot. But I simply didn't even think about buying a drainage, at least for my other plants, when I was in the store. The roots were so long and entwined that it was a huge surprise for me. I used to think that the roots of succulents were different, so I was a little scared after I'd tore off such a patch. But there was no other way to take it out of the pot. I planned to separate these little clumps, so I tried making the roots soak in water, hoping that I would manage to unhook them, but their roots were so closely entangled that I accidentally tore one succulent off. There were some thin and short roots left, so it gave me some comfort. Plus, for some reason, I was sure that these guys had to be really enduring, so with confidence I planted everything which I had to tear off. I got rid of some of the soil which was in the roots and planted the plants in a circle. By the way, I managed to separate one of the succulents and save its precious fruits. The plastic pots I decided to leave in case I would like to propagate cuttings. Why not? I was curious to try it, or maybe to create something with them. I poured the rest of the soil into the center and watered the plants. Well, this is how it looks so far. To add some magic into the composition, I took tiny string lights. This length will be enough for us. Due to my experience, I know that the wires are insulated well enough, which means that it's safe to water this composition. I've checked whether everything is alright. Yeah, it means that we can move on to the next step. The string is only 2 meters or 7 foot long, so I decided to bend it around the pot and a little inside of it. Having bent the string lights around the pot twice, I managed to choose what lights would form the lampposts. I combined 2 lights together to make them shine even brighter. I took UV resin to secure them together into a big lamp with a tiny drop of resin. Then I pressed it together and quickly dried it. Next, I had to enlarge the size of this drop to make a decent lamp out of it. I was carefully pouring little drops, then I was twisting and quickly drying the string lights. So that was how I formed such a ball, and now it looks much better, doesn't it? It is a decent lamp post now. And it seems to me that the light even looks different. If you look at the whole composition, not just at a single lamp, I think it looks like a real lamp post. So that was how I did 2 similar lamp posts. Once again, I had string lights, and I bent it like this. And I left one separate light between the lampposts, so that I could put the lampposts further from each other in the composition. I wanted to have longer sections to be able to put my lampposts further from each other. And it will be okay if you hide one of the lights in the soil, which I actually did a bit later. And the end of the string I wanted to curl up in a kind of a ball and put it inside a house. But I needed to do something with these wires on top. When I was thinking how I could make these lamps, I imagined a classic variant of a lamppost, but with a round bulb. I took this bead cap, which was just the right size to make a little hat for our lamppost. I split these two wires into four and formed a sphere, then with the help of a tool I made the shape round. It's supposed to look like that, so these two wires could resemble this part of the lamppost. But I needed to make the bottom part too, so the wires could hide in it. I found my favorite working surface, which was actually a piece of cardboard, and it seemed like it was its final project. I pressed the cap into the cardboard because I needed only the half of it. Next, I took polymer clay. I wanted to make wooden pillars, and that's why I had taken this color scheme. I mixed them in a special way to make such a wooden pattern, but unfortunately it turned out not that evident because the amount of clay I'd taken was too little. The cap couldn't lay still, so I had to secure it with some hot glue. Like this? Yeah, good. Next, I covered it in a thin layer of clay, smoothed everything, and made a pillar sausage. But as I needed only the half of it, I cut it in two. For the sake of beauty and to make it more secure, I made such decorative element for the top, and the second, a bit thinner one, for the bottom. I scratched the whole pillar to achieve a bark-looking effect, and after that it was high time for baking. There were lots of questions about my oven. It is called Bon Cuisine Petit from Ariete, but it actually should be Bon Cuisine Petite, because the word kitchen has a female gender. So I don't really know why it was named like that, because the product is Italian, but the name is in French. But if it is in French, there is a grammar mistake. So if you know the origin of this name, write it in the comments, please. Because for me, it's difficult to bear this mistake. Anyway, no matter what oven you have, what really matters is to put a thermometer inside, to know exactly what temperature it is inside. The lamppost, which looks like a torch because of the glue, is completely baked, and while the glue is still hot, it is possible to get rid of it. Carefully taking off the hat, well, I didn't manage to do it. But it's not a problem. We can simply glue it back. The outer design of my future lampposts was ready, so next I needed to work on the inner part to be able to put the wires inside. For this I take my beloved eye gum, I mix its two components in 1:1 ratio. It seems like I've taken too much, well, never mind. What I need is to put the pillar inside the gum, so that we will have the imprint of the outer side, but for the inner side I will have to make for each lamppost. which is not difficult at all, because all I need is to make a deepening for the wires. Besides, like this, it will be possible to make the details for 2 lamp posts. To be honest, I forgot about the upper cap, but I managed to press it in while the gum was still soft. After half an hour, it was completely hard. The imprint was amazing. The pattern turned out really well. I pushed the clay into the silicone mold we've just made and made a deepening for the wires and a lamp. I decided to assemble it specifically at that moment because of the wires, and I realized that even without the upper detail, it already looks quite bulky. Plus, it wasn't as bright as I wanted it to be, so I needed to add more light shades and highlight the texture. But I planned to do it at the end when my lamppost would have been already done. And sometimes, because of all these various materials I have, I forget about the simplest but at the same time interesting techniques I used to apply in childhood. So I decided to take threads. I wound the thread a lot around the lamp, and then I kept winding it round the post, leaving no space between the threads. Sometimes I had to push the thread with my nail to make it look more even and nice. But on the bottom I wound a lot of thread like it was a design. I added a drop of superglue to secure the thread and wound it several more times. It helped me to make the lampposts look thin and elegant, like I wanted. Also, they looked quite unique. Next, we can get to the little house. I planned to make the light inside of it, so it meant that I needed to make it hollow inside. First of all, I had to find something on which I would sculpt it, and for that purpose I took different glass bottles. Some of them were just the right size, so I began covering them in clay. So I've taken some white clay because I want the walls inside to be white to reflect the light well. Plus, when I'll be creating the texture of the house, the concrete between the stones, if I can say so, will be bright, so it will be possible, using a dry brush, to change its color. The bottle was actually bullet round, but I sculpted a marshmallow shape anyway, because I'd made these two sides a bit thicker, but it only made the house look cute. I took the second bottle, made sure that the size was okay, and cut off a piece of clay to attach the bottle. I kept covering it with clay as I done with the previous one, but the bottle just didn't want to stick to clay. Hopefully, I had hot glue, which perfectly rescued me. I prefer using it because it easily peels off the surfaces. I added a little of clay to the back to smooth the sides and make them look like they were one straight wall, and also to hide the crack between the bottles. adding a bit of improvements to the shape and making the sides. Specifically, I needed to make this inner corner square. Next, I outlined the door. And now I can cut out little windows. For some reason, it was the nicest process. And moving on to applying a stone texture to the wall. Outlining the stones and slightly pressing the clay with a crumpled piece of foil. It wasn't really the easiest way to do it, and I came up with the idea of doing it with a crumpled but a flat piece of foil before the outlining, otherwise the foil ruins the outlining. I made 2 floors in the main part of the house to show that this part is bigger than this front side with a hole, if I can say so. When everything was prepared, I put it into the oven to bake it a little, not completely though, because after that I was going to bake the roof in the house. But such a short baking will help the clay become harder, and it will be much easier for me to work with this figure, and I definitely won't accidentally dent it anyhow. Peeling off the glue, and now we can finally take the bottles out to make the house stand still. Unfortunately, in the place where the door was, I scratched the clay too deep right to the bottle, so there was a deep outline. Because of this, the door fell off. So I had to cut it off to make a new one, which would be possible to close and open. Making sure that the marshmallow size fits our composition, while looks pretty, it means that we can keep working. As I wanted to make the base for the roof, I took the same good old foil to save some clay for the future. The roof will be hollow inside, which means we could hide some treasures inside. I make a cone out of a thin piece of clay, then I shape it like a hat of a witch, and make the same roof but smaller. A lot of baking was going to happen, so I baked the roof separately to protect the white base of the house from over-baking. While it was in the oven, I cut off a piece of a can and made a little drop out of it. Be really careful when you use this material, because it's too easy to accidentally cut yourself. I connected its ends and secured them with some tape. Also, I used this very tape to make some kind of a protection on the spot where I was going to press it with my finger. By that time, the base for our roof was completely baked, so I took the foil out. I put the roof in its place to see how well it fits, and I had to cut off one spot a little to make the small roof fit better. Don't really know how it happened, but it's okay. I temporarily glued it on hot glue and moved on to making tiles. For this, I rolled the clay and covered it with a plastic bag. You can take a cling wrap instead, but I didn't have it at that moment. I cut the clay through the wrap with a handmade cutter, because it helps to round the shape and make your creation look cuter. Let's compare how the tiles look without the cling wrap. There is difference, isn't it? I began putting the drops on the roof to see how good they looked like, but the roof was sticking out too much, so I had to cut it off really carefully. In some spots, I had to make it thinner by these like peeling vegetables motions. It helped to make the roof look less bulky. Attaching a tile and squeezing its upper part to make it stick to the house better and to make the tiles lie evenly. I glued them to each other, arranging them in a row. The next layer I put on the edges of two neighboring tiles of the previous row. Yeah, that is how we need to make the whole roof. I made several rows and baked them, because I began accidentally touching the soft elements and they were losing its shape. And you know, I looked at the house and I thought that it looked nice, but the roof looked too big for it. I wanted to see whether it fitted the pot, but it didn't because of the roof. There was only one way: to make a smaller house. To make it, I took these smaller bottles, and the rest of the steps were the same. The only thing is that it turned out more edgy and straight, so for me it wasn't that cute. Well, okay. I wanted to make the roof to be more related to forest. The previous one wasn't that detailed, and I would have painted it anyway, so don't think that I would leave it like that. But I still wanted something different. There was dried myrtle behind me. It smelled awfully good, and it was its twigs I'd taken for the roof. I needed to take apart this bouquet, but the pink baby's breath I decided to save for later. The leaves of myrtle might also come in handy. They were quite thick and well dried, and the sticks of the myrtle I cut for the roof. I was thinking a lot about the best way to complete the roof, and as a result, I attached a strip of clay to it and pressed my thin and little twigs into it. Then went the next clay strip and another row of twigs. It wasn't easy because the twigs were always falling off when I was holding the house in my hands. But I couldn't help it but accidentally touching the twigs, like imagine I've put 4 twigs and 1 twig I had to put back on its place. But it was okay, I was fine with it. By the way, that time I left the house and the bottles. I didn't take it off because it was small and difficult to hold, so it was much better to hold it like that with the bottles. Some of the twigs I put checkerwise, using a thin strip of clay. It helped to save the roof because it was trying to fall apart. But then I found one more possible way to do it. Instead of putting twigs on each other, you can push them into the clay like this and also arrange them checkerwise. But anyway, both of these methods require patience. And some of the elements I had to secure with glue anyway. To secure the rose on the very top, I used superglue. When this glue is setting, it becomes quite thick and doesn't spread over that easily. It is also transparent, so it was perfect to fix the bigger twigs. To add a little of charm, I picked some of the twigs with broken pieces of leaves on them. Can't you agree that it's not that obvious that the leaf which used to be there was teared off on purpose? I think it is so because the twigs are super tiny and they look quite proportional with all these green tiny leaves. It looks quite pretty and I like the result. I've been thinking a lot about painting the walls or nah, and eventually I yielded to this idea. Well, anyway, I had an opportunity to try painting the house, but the first one I'd made. I mixed different colors together, but nothing worked for me. It had to be and had to look like a house of a magical creature. So I decided to make the walls look like they had been made of rhodochrosite. It's actually the first time I've seen this word. How it was, I only decided to Google pink stone, and apart from pink quartz and some kind of semi-precious stones, I found this. And immediately decided that the walls of this house are made of rhodochrosite. I added a little of light brown and left it till it became dry. After that, I took the house off the bottles and began making the windows. For this I needed to put some masking tape inside and take UV resin. I poured just a little of it and quickly dried the resin with a UV flashlight. Now it is possible to peel off the tape, which left this matte texture. Well, I wanted to get rid of it, so I poured a drop of glue inside, spread it over the whole window and dried it up. The entrance to the little room became so small that my finger couldn't fit there anymore, so the toothpick saved the day. Pouring a little of UV resin, spread it over, making sure it's dry, and peeling off the tape. Here you can see what kind of surface the tape leaves. Applying some resin inside and just have a look how everything is changing. Well, now we are talking. I made the window a bit plump with a drop of resin to make it look more interesting, especially from some distance. Here we go. A little of extra painting is left here. I put the house into the lamp to make sure that the resin is well dried. Now we can add our electricity conveniences. The end of the string I hide inside of a house. put the house in its place, and now it's time to arrange the lampposts. It wasn't that easy to cram all of this as I thought before. But I think that they will get out from under it because of the seldom watering. We'll see. We can pour some soil on them anyway. It was so enjoyable and unusual for me to place the wires between the plants. I don't really know why. On this part of the string, I needed the lights to be seen. That was why I bent them like this up to the surface, and the wire I was trying to hide under their soil. Carefully swift away the soil from the succulents, and voila! When I bought these succulents for this project, I was sure that these plants grow really slow. Maybe you heard they say that succulents are like stone roses. I don't really know why I used to think like that, but I was sure that they would barely change the way they looked like. But they just did! Just look how small they were when I just bought them and how big they are now. Well, anyway, I hope this house lasts long. Right now, I'm so obsessed with all these houseplants topics that I would love to hear your advice about the plant care. Who subscribed to my Instagram notes that I grow forget-me-nots? They have grown a little? Actually, it's not a houseplant, but I just simply really like them. Let's see how many gardeners are here on my channel. I am a true beginner now, and for me everything is super exciting, every change which I especially love to notice in the mornings. Well, but it's a topic for the next video. I hope this video was interesting and useful for you. Many thanks to my sponsors for support. I love all of you this much. Bye. I just told you that it seems like they have grown a little, but that voiceover was recorded a week ago. After that, we went to the summer house, then got back, and they already look like this. It is a pineapple, not a succulent. I found that it might happen if there is not enough light. But I put them in the brightest place I could find. This might also happen if there is too much of light, which is quite possible because in the store they were under the artificial light. But now, if I try to put them in a dark spot, wouldn't it try to reach the sunlight and become even more crooked? And this succulent already has some babies. Well, I don't really know what to do with them. It just seems like I need to stop concealing that the beautiful composition which I loved is now alive only in this video. This one also looks nice and unusual, but not like the previous one. And I've never thought that the update on this house life will be filmed that soon.